So, hello students. Let's start our discussion on the 2025 UPSC CSE Mains GS Paper 4 case studies discussion. So, the first case study over here, it talks about a person called Vijay. Vijay was Deputy Commissioner of remote district of hilly northern state of country for the last 2 years. In the month of August, heavy rains lashed the complete state followed by cloudburst in the upper reaches of the said district. The damage was very heavy in the complete state, especially in the affected district. The complete road network and telecommunication were disrupted and the buildings were damaged extensively. People's houses have been destroyed and they were forced to stay in open. More than 200 people have been killed and about 5,000 were badly injured. The civil administration under Vijay got activated and started conducting rescue and relief operations. Temporary shelter camps and hospitals were established to provide shelter and medical facilities to the homeless and injured people. Helicopter services were pressed in for evacuating sick and old people from remote areas. Vijay got a message from his hometown in Kerala that his mother was seriously sick. Now, please see this. Till the time we were discussing what is happening in his district, and suddenly he's got some personal issue. After 2 days, Vijay received the unfortunate message that his mother has expired. Vijay has no close relative except one elder sister who was US citizen and staying there for last several years. In the meantime, the situation in the affected district deteriorated further due to resumption of heavy rains after a gap of 5 days. At the same time, continuous messages were coming on his mobile from his hometown to reach at the earliest for performing last rites of his mother. So the question is, what all options Vijay right now has? What all ethical dilemmas Vijay is facing? We have to critically evaluate and examine each of these options identified by Vijay, and which of the options do you think would be most appropriate for Vijay to adopt and why? Now see, it's a very genuine kind of a case study that you can expect that any bureaucrat might go through, wherein there is a tussle between his personal life and the professional responsibility or the duty. Okay. Now, one of the way to write is you can summarize the case in a very short manner. That would be one way, and write down the stakeholders. Here, the people who are affected by this disaster, they are stakeholders. District administration, Vijay himself, his family, and the government over here. All these are stakeholders. Now, see what all option he has. Think about it in a way wherein all these options, which are good, bad, everything, you have to think about it. Simply, he can leave immediately to his hometown and perform the last rites of his mother. That is one option available. But will that be a responsible option? You have to show that. Then he can stay back fully in the disaster affected district and not go to the home. Or maybe he can take a leave of, let's say, 2 to 3 days, and he can go for completing his last rite responsibility. Or there is one option, do this last rites thing in a very remote manner, right? Or he can seek some guidance from some of his higher authorities, because it's a very complicated situation. Now, these are the options available with him. Now, the question has asked about ethical dilemmas also. So, we say personal thing or personal responsibility versus public responsibility or public duty. This is one challenge. Second, as far as family is concerned, there is emotional involvement. So, emotional commitment is there towards the mother. And then professional responsibility is there. Then another angle, deontological ethics versus utilitarian ethics. If you look at it, there is short-term family obligation and long-term administrative accountability. You can think about such dilemmas coming into picture. And see, he's in a leadership position. Whatever action he will be doing, that will set an example. So he has to keep that one thing in mind. Now let's evaluate all of these options that he has, which we discussed over here already. So for example, he can leave immediately. So he can leave immediately, but that wouldn't set a right example. And there's a possibility that this can risk more casualties in his district. Second option, he can stay back fully. Now good thing, service he is giving more importance to. But what about the emotional burden that he will be carrying? right? He's neglecting his cultural duty, his duty towards the family. That's a problem. Third, requesting short leave with delegation. This delegation is very important, that you give your work to some other person who is capable of doing that, and you take a leave for few days. So this is a relatively a balanced way of doing these things, right? Something relatively better. Then perform last rites remotely. This is also okay if it is possible. Very good. And then seek higher authority guidance. Now here you show that you're carrying some moral burden because of which you're confused and because of which you're asking for some help. But this is also showing that you are a very indecisive person. The leadership quality also involves decisiveness. That in case of any of such harsh conditions or dilemmas, you have to be very decisive and take actions. So somewhere it's not giving a good impression. But seeking a guidance is not that wrong also. Taking some opinion if it is possible, right? Now, which option should you go ahead? See, don't go for just one option. Even if we have chosen 3, 4, 5 options, don't go for just one, right? You can choose multiple options also, or you can choose the third option as the base option, and you can choose to mix multiple options. The third options relatively is better because you're delegating the work. But you can say this thing very clearly. If it is possible to delegate, only then in that case you're going to delegate it. Otherwise, you'll not do that. Otherwise, you will put public service over anything. Okay? So that's how you try to come to conclusion on this particular case. Right? So that was the case of Vijay. Now, let's look at the next case study. So the case says, in line with the directive principles of state policy enshrined in the Indian Constitution, government has constitutional obligation to ensure basic needs, roti, kapda or makan, that is food, clothes and shelter, for the underprivileged. Pursuing this mandate, the district administration proposed clearing a portion of forest land to develop housing for the homeless and economically weaker section of the society. Please understand, they're trying to, you already can see the problem over here. They're trying to clear some forest land. So ecology versus this social justice, or what we call as development. This dimension is being touched in this particular case, right? Now, the proposed land, however, is an ecologically sensitive zone, densely populated with age-old trees, medicinal plants, and vital biodiversity. Besides, these forests help to regulate microclimate and rainfalls, provide habitat for wildlife, support soil fertility, and prevent land or soil erosion and sustain livelihood of tribal and nomadic communities. So they've just described about the importance of this forest or ecological importance. Now, in spite of ecological and social costs, the administration argues in favor of the said proposal by highlighting that this very initiative would provide housing to human rights as a critical welfare priority. Besides it fulfills the government's duty to uplift and empower the poor through inclusive housing development. Further, these forest areas have become unsafe due to wild animal threats and recurring human-wildlife conflict. Lastly, clearing forest zones may help to curb antisocial elements allegedly using these areas as hideouts, thereby enhancing law and order. See, what you need to do is, when so many things are coming up, just highlight them while reading this particular case study, because these are your stakeholders. Somewhere you will find out your stakeholders through this. Okay. Now they are asking, can deforestation be ethically justified in pursuit of social welfare objective like housing for the homeless? Second, what are the socio-economic, administrative and ethical challenges in balancing environmental conservation with human development, right? This is the same thing we said. And what substantial alternatives or policy interventions can be proposed to ensure that both environmental integrity and human dignity are protected? Now see, Again, I said you can summarize the case, whatever they have said, and try to identify these stakeholders, right? For example, here, the homeless people, tribals living over there, the forest ecosystem, district administration, civil society, NGO group, environmental activists, and the future generation. This is something people are not focusing. When you talk about environment versus development debate, always bring this future generation also as a stakeholder, right? Now, can deforestation be ethically justified, especially when we are trying to do something good like this social welfare? So, you have to talk about deforestation over here in detail, how it can be justified or how it cannot be justified. Now, we will say we can't justify deforestation because it's not a good thing that you're doing. So, if we can't justify it, especially when you bring some principles like sustainability, intergenerational equity, environmental justice, when you talk about such principles, you cannot ever ethically justify deforestation, right? But even this social welfare is important. So social welfare is important, but when you destroy the forest, you are making a long term problem for humans as well as nature, right? Now, in order to see what is right and wrong, we go for many frameworks, like we have this utilitarian ethics, which says destruction harms more people. You understand one thing, right now you're trying to save some people, you're giving them house and all, but the environment destruction that will cause more harm than even you can think of. Then if you see through deontological ethics, they talk about duty. Then you have the duty to protect the nature. We have article 51A that talks about fundamental duties, so there we have a duty. You go for Gandhian philosophy, he talks about harmony with nature. So he suggests that our lifestyle should be of a kind which is minimalistic in nature, sustainable in nature, right? So we are not saying that deforestation is justified as such. Now, what are the socio-economic, administrative, and ethical challenges in balancing environmental conservation with human development? So you have to just talk about challenges in these three different ways. So first, socio-economic. So why all these things are happening? Number one, rising urbanization and homelessness, poverty and inequality, dependence of these tribals on forests for the survival. Then you can talk about sub-administrative challenges. For example, you see, when it comes to government coming up with some schemes, there is a pressure to meet the housing target that is there on the administration. And because of this challenge, they go for such actions many a times. Then we have environmental laws, but the enforcement is very, very weak. You can give example of this Environment Protection Act, etc. Right? And then managing human wildlife conflicts, even sometimes this is a major challenge, because of which what we do is we don't give much importance to environment sometimes, right? Then moving ahead, if we talk about ethical challenges in this, so when you talk about ethical challenges, again try to reach out to the principles, core principles. For example, there is a principle of equity. So here you talk poor versus future generations, whether you're talking about the importance to be given to the poor people of present time or the future generations who are going to face the problem. Then idea of justice, rights of tribals versus rights of these homeless people. Then integrity and accountability when it comes to this working of public administration. And then balancing our DPSPs with the fundamental duties, because fundamental duty includes environmental protection. You can rather even ask or try to write about fundamental rights, because fundamental right also includes article 21, right to life, right? So you can talk about these things. Now, what substantial alternatives or policy interventions can be proposed to ensure that both environmental integrity and human dignity are protected? So just tell us the alternative methods or policy interventions. So this is just your GS answer. I'm telling you, nothing to do with the this case study part as such. Whatever you people generally study, you have to just give some solution. So use degraded wasteland instead of this dense forest. Go for vertical housing, in situ rehabilitation, integrate sustainable housing policies. Go for PPP model, urban planning, community-based forest protection. All these are very general study kind of stuff. Nothing new as such. So I don't think this is a difficult case study as such for you people, right? Now let's go to the next. Now this case study involves Subhash. So who is Subhash? Subhash is a secretary in PWD department in the state government. Now, he is a senior officer known for his competence, integrity, and dedication to work. So, he's a very good officer, it seems. Now, he enjoys trust and confidence of minister in charge of PWD and program implementation. As part of his job, as part of his job profile, he is responsible for policy formulation, execution of projects relating to infrastructure initiatives in the state. Besides, he oversees the technical and administrative aspects relating to planning, designing, and construction, etc. Now, Subhash Minister is an important minister in the state, and significant growth in urban infrastructure development and road network has been registered during his tenure. And he's very keen for launching of ambitious road construction project in near future. Subhash is in regular touch with this minister. Now this is very important. Okay, that's where you're seeing the relationship. And he's working various modalities of road construction project. Regular meetings, interactions, and presentations are made by him to the minister before a formal public announcement of the project is made by the minister. Now, Subhash's only son, Vikas, now his son is also coming into picture, is in the real estate business. His son, from his own sources, is aware that a mega road project is on the anvil, and announcement in this regard is expected any time. Now, he is very keen to know from his father, that means from Subhash obviously, the exact location of the upcoming project. So, you see, there someone from your family member trying to make use of you to get these confidential informations, conflict of interest. Okay, the moment I read this, I can think of the case of conflict of interest, right? Now, he knows that there would be quantum jump in the prices of land at the proposed location. Buying land at this stage at cheaper prices would pay him rich dividends. He's pleading with him means with his father, day in day out to share him location of the proposed project. He assured him that he would handle the matter discreetly, as it would not attract any adverse notice, as he's in normal course, keeps on buying land as part of his business. He feels pressurized because of constant pleading by his son. Now, Subhash is under pressure because of his son. You understand this thing, right? Now, another significant aspect of the matter pertained to the extra or undue interest in the above project by Minister PWD. His nephew, see, Minister PWD, his nephew was also having big infrastructure project company. In fact, Minister has also introduced his nephew to him and indicated to him to take care of his nephew's business interest in the forthcoming project. This minister encouraged him to act fast in the matter, as early announcement and execution of the mega road project would enhance his status in the party and public life. You see, again there is case of conflict of interest. In one way, it was because of the personal thing, like his son is involved, and here this minister is involved, his nephew is involved, right? Now, in the above backdrops, Subhash is in a fix as to the future course of action. So, discuss ethical issues involved in the case. First, second, examine options available, and third, which of the above would be the most appropriate and why. You see, again, you tell about the story, all those things, tell all these stakeholders like Subhash, his son Vikas, the minister's nephew, his company, overall public. This is one thing, overall public, the taxpayers whose money is involved in all these things, they are also a party in this PWD department. Also, you can add this business community and competitors, because the moment you give extra or undue advantage to some companies, then you're removing the competition, you're not giving importance to competition, right? So even the entire business community becomes one of your important stakeholder. This you have to think. Now, ethical issues involved in this case. First, conflict of interest, I already told you this. Then confidentiality. some important information that they are asking for. So confidentiality and your integrity is at question. Then bringing your family members or minister's family members, that's the case of nepotism. And then chronic capitalism. Then there's an issue about your professional responsibility. Then family pressure is there, but public duty is there. There's a conflict. This is an ethical dilemma for you. And you are holding a public office, right? So misuse of public office is nothing but a corruption that you will be doing over here. So these are the ethical issues that we can certainly find out. Now, what are the options you have? First thing, well, you can go ahead with this corruption, share the project location with your son in a secret manner. You're supporting the nepotism here to some extent. Now, you can talk about the good things and bad things about it. Now, this is very easy part. So your son will be happy, family will be happy, financial gain, all these things. But confidentiality gone, conflict of interest is there, loss of credibility, all these things are happening. Similarly, if not to your son, if you give this information to your nephew or allot this project to him, the nephew of minister, then you might have good relations with the minister, career security will be there, but corruption is there, unfair competition, poor quality infra, all these things will happen, right? Third option, you refuse both of them. I would personally suggest I'll go for this. I'll refuse both of them. I am upholding ethics, transparency, credibility, public trust, all these things, right? Now this might lead to some conflict with family members as well as the minister, but okay, that's okay. Ethics will not compromise. Then adopt procedural safeguard. Now this is one additional option we have, that you go for competitive bidding, transparent disclosures. Now this is how you're trying to ensure that procedurally you're ensuring the responsible attitude towards the work. Now this is one good way, but this is something minister will not like, your family might not like, but fine. I think the option 3 and 4, if I combine, that would be the right way. So we can say this thing, I'll combine 3 and 4 and I'll go ahead with this particular way. Okay, that's how you can deal with this case study. Okay, now the next question is, Rajesh is a Group A officer with 9 years of service. He is posted as administrative officer in oil public sector undertaking. Now, as an administrative officer, he is responsible for managing and coordinating various administrative tasks to ensure smooth functioning of office. He also manages office supplies, equipment, etc. And Rajesh is now sufficient senior and is expecting his next promotion in junior administrative grade in the next 1 or 2 years. And he knows that promotion is based on examination of ACR and performance appraisal of last few years, that is 5 years or so, of an officer by a DPC, Departmental Promotion Committee, and an officer lacking requisite grading of ACR may not be found fit for promotion. Now, consequences of losing promotion may entail financial loss, reputational loss, and setback for career progression. Though he also puts his best efforts in official discharge of his duties, yet he is unsure of assessment by his superior office. See this, he is unsure of assessment by superior office. There's a lack of trust. And he's now putting extra effort so that he gets thumping report at the end of financial years. Now, as administrative officer, Rajesh is regularly interacting with his immediate boss, who is a reporting officer for writing his ACR. One day he calls Rajesh and wants him to buy some computer related stationery on priority from a particular vendor. You need to understand, he's asking him to buy things from a particular vendor. Now Rajesh instructs his office to initiate action for procuring these items. During the day, the dealing assistant brings an estimate of rupees 35 lakhs covering all stationery items from the same vendor. Now it is noticed that as per delegated financial powers as provided in the general financial rules as applicable in that organization, expenditure for office items exceeding rupees 30 lakh requires sanction of the next higher authority, that is the boss in the present case. So here he needs his boss permission is what we understand. Now Rajesh knows that immediate superior would expect all these purchases should be done at his level and not he wants that he may not appreciate such lack of initiative on his part. So it's like superior wants you do it on your own, take all the responsibility. And during discussions with the office, he learns that common practice of splitting of expenditure, where large order is divided into a series of smaller ones, is followed to avoid obtaining sanction from higher authority. Now, this practice is obviously against the rules and may come to the adverse notice of audit. So Rajesh is perturbed and he's unsure of taking decision in the matter. So now, what all options he has? You need to show. Now, before we talk about it, I'm saying he needs to show the courage in this particular case. He will have to show integrity in this particular case. These values should be shown in this case particularly. Okay, what options, ethical issues are there, and most appropriate option. The similar kind of question they are asking. Look at stakeholder. Rajesh is there. His boss is there. The organization overall, audit authorities will be there. Public, taxpayers, and the vendor also, because a special vendor is there. Now, what all option he has? He can follow his superiors' advice or whatever he said, and it is an unwritten expectation. He's not giving anything in writing, right? He can do that, but this will be a case wherein it is illegal. It might be found even in audit, reputational risk, personal accountability, and even you can say compromise on integrity. Then second option is seek formal approval of higher authority, but that person will not like it. Your immediate superior might not like it, and this can have impact on your career, right? That's fine. You compromise your career, but not compromise your work. That's what ethics is all about. Then advice for re-estimation and genuine cost cutting. Now this could be one interesting way that reduce unnecessary items so that you bring the cost below 30 lakh, but still you need to understand this doesn't solve the issue. Okay, this is like superficial things, right? Then consult higher vigilance finance wing for guidance. This could be one way, right? This could be very good way, because this can shield Rajesh in this particular case. That's at these major agencies will come into picture, right? And last is refuse to comply with rule violation. There you are showing the courage directly. This upholds integrity and legal compliance. Obviously, boss will not like it, but who cares? Ethics matters, right? So now, if we talk about ethical issues in this, your integrity versus career interest, that's one. Rule of law, because you're doing something illegal. So rule of law versus organizational culture. Then public accountability versus private gain. Professional responsibility versus hierarchical pressure, transparency versus auditability. These are the issues we can find out. And anyway, conflict of interest will certainly be there, because you're selecting a special vendor. How can you do this? This is favoritism, right? Now, most appropriate option would be not to split the expenditure first of all, forward the full proposal to higher authority. This is a better thing. Suggest genuine rationalization and maintain a written record of the advice and actions taken. Now, this is the way you're doing it in a well bureaucratic manner, in a very good way. Now, here you're balancing all these things. So that's how you show it. Okay. Now, the next case study number 11, or question number 11, that is about this case study. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program Manrega was earlier known as National Rural Employment Scheme Narega. It is an Indian social welfare program that aimed at fulfilling the right to work provisions made in the constitution. Manrega was launched in 2006 under rural employment sector by the Ministry of Rural Development. The main objective of the program is to give legal guarantee of wage employment to the adult members of rural households who are willing to do unskilled manual labor work, subject to a maximum of 100 days per year for every household. Every rural household has the right to register under the scheme. Job card is issued to the registered job card holder, can seek employment. State government shall pay 25% of minimum wage for the first 30 days as compensatory daily unemployment allowance to the families, right? Now, and of wage for remaining period of the year. Now see, Manrega work was undertaken by various Gram Panchayats. You have been appointed as an administrative in charge of the district. Now see, this is where your role is coming into picture. So you have been appointed as administrator in charge. You've been given the responsibility of monitoring Manrega work undertaken by various Gram Panchayats, and you're also given the authority to give technical sanctions to all Manrega works. In one of the panchayats in your jurisdiction, you notice that your predecessor has mismanaged the program. Now, see, this predecessor is an important. This officer has done something wrong, mismanaged the program in terms of money not disbursed to actual job seekers, muster rolls of the laborers not properly maintained, mismatch between the work done and payments made, payments made to fictitious persons, job cards were given without looking into the need of the person, mismanagement of funds to the extent of siphoning of funds, approved works that never existed. So this shows full of corruption these things are happening. Now what is your reaction in the above situation? Now reaction doesn't mean you'll be like suddenly what you will feel. Your reaction also involves your thought process and how do you restore the proper functioning of Manrega. Now what actions would you initiate to solve the various issues? Now action should be involving action to deal with the Manrega thing and also to whatever that person has already done, ensuring his accountability or taking some action against him. Even that has to be there, right? Now, how would you deal with the above situation? So, see, first talk about stakeholders, rural job seekers, the Gram Panchayat, local officials, district administration, which involves you also, state and central government, public at large, and this audit authorities. Now, what will be your reaction? Now, you can simply say that this is an issue of serious concern and urgency. When it comes to reaction, what are the major issues do you see? You have to show that corruption, mismanagement, violation of the spirit of Manrega. All these are the main things you see in the first, right? Then it erodes the trust of rural poor people in governance, right? This is about the credibility of the government and government schemes. So you will talk about these things. Now, what all you will do, your action side. So you say, I can start the fact finding so that I can ensure accountability later on. So you see what all you do. Actions to restore proper functioning of Manrega. First, fact finding, auditing part. I'll find out whatever the problems are. Then I'll take corrective measures. So stop all these non-existent projects immediately. Then I'll ensure that all this direct benefit transfer that has to be taken place. So that verification all I will ensure. If there is fraudulent job card, I'll cancel it out. These are the corrective measures. Now this is somewhere you are dealing with this issue of Manrega, but then you have to take action against that person also. So accountability and disciplinary action. So identifying those officers involved in this case who did all these things, taking whatever legal or disciplinary proceeding against them, blacklist the vendors or contractors involved in this case, right? And last, you talk about the long term thing, restoration of transparency and trust. So for that, whatever is needed, so again this monitoring part, online management information system, we'll try to strengthen that, right? So this is how you show that you're looking at long term things, and then think about capacity building and monitoring so that such things should not happen in future. That's how you holistically show your efforts, right? Now how to dealing with this situation part, your approach is balanced approach. You're looking at this idea of restorative justice, preventive measures also you are taking, community participation. That's how you show extra efforts from your side. Let's say in preventive measures you talk about IT enabled monitoring part. In community participation you can say that in this social audit part you can bring in the civil society groups, the people living over there, they will be empowered because of this. So that's how you deal with this particular case study. Okay, now comes the next, that is this case study which involves Ashok. Ashok is a divisional commissioner of one of the border districts of northeast state. A few years back, military has taken over the neighboring country after overthrowing the elected civil government. Civil war situation is prevailing in the country, especially in the last 2 years. However, internal situation further deteriorated due to rebel groups taking over control of certain populated areas near own border. Now, due to intense fight between military and rebel groups, civilian casualties has increased manifold in recent past. In the meantime, in one night, Ashok got information from the local police guarding the border checkpost that there are about 200 to 250 people, mainly women and children. They're trying to cross over to our side of the border. Now you need to understand, when you're looking at this, focus on this part, that they're talking about women and children specifically here. Okay, there are also about 10 soldiers. Now they are different. Soldiers, women, very different, with their weapons in the military uniform, part of this group who wants to cross over. Women and children are also crying and begging for help. Few of them are injured and bleeding, profusely need immediate medical care. Ashok tried to contact Home Secretary of the state, but he failed to do so due to poor connectivity, mainly due to inclement weather. Now, what are the options available with Ashok to cope up with this situation? What are the ethical and legal dilemmas being faced by Ashok? Which of the options do you think you would be more appropriate for Ashok to adopt, and why? And in the present situation, what are the extra precautionary measures to be taken by the border guarding police in dealing with the soldiers in uniform? Now, this is a very comprehensive question they are asking. So, first of all, talk about the stakeholders. Ashok, obviously, the women, children, and the injured civilians. They are. Then soldiers who are also there with these women and children. They are also important stakeholders. Then border security forces, state and central government, local population living in these border areas, neighboring countries, government or military or rebels, they are also here, and international community or human rights groups. Now, ethical issues would be, see, women and children are there. You have to show some compassion, empathy, humanitarianism over here. They are refugees for you, right? Then what about integrity and probity in public service? That you have to show. Rule of law is involved. National security is also involved. Both are there. Your accountability and responsibility, and the idea of justice and fairness has to be there when you're treating these civilians differently from the armed soldiers. See, civilians and soldiers are different, so you have to bring this fairness part over here. Okay, so what all options are there? Let's say first you can say we will deny entry to everyone. Our national security is more important, but this is where you're not being fair. This is where you're not showing compassion, right? Second is allow only women, children to cross, deny entry to the soldiers. Now this could be one way. You're giving importance to women and children, but these are soldiers. How can we allow them? Right? Or third way would be allow everyone. Allow, just one second. You say that we are allowing everyone, but when it comes to soldiers, you have to disarm the soldiers immediately first. Now this is a better way I found rather than the second option. Fourth is provide temporary humanitarian aid at the border itself. So any medical help, food, whatever is needed, that we will provide. Again, this is showing a lot of compassion and responsibility and humanitarian stuff, right? Now, ethical and legal dilemmas Ashok might be facing. Number one is national security versus humanitarianism. This is a major conflict he will be facing. Then duty towards the law and duty towards humanity. You need to understand, duty towards the law of the land is important, but duty towards the humanity, that's also very important. You can't say no to it. Then justice versus mercy. Now this is something very important, very, very important. Many people go for justice, but mercy is substantially important. Okay. Now legal dilemmas, you have some acts. Now this is something you anyway read in your GS and current affairs also. This Foreigners Act, refugee status, that India is not having any formal refugee law as such. Then Armed Forces Special Powers Act, Border Security Mandate, International Humanitarian Obligation. All these things you can mention. This is from your GS knowledge, right? The most appropriate option would be going for some balanced approach. You allow women, you allow children, that they can come immediately, and provide them whatever needed, like shelter, food, medical aid, etc. As far as soldiers are there, disarm them. That's a better thing, right? And then intimate your higher authorities as soon as possible, right? Now, why this is appropriate? Because you have to show, see, we will write this down, why you are taking this action. That argument is important. So constitutional morality we are upholding. Then security and compassion, both you are coming up with. You're preventing immediate deaths, right? Also, you're not compromising on national security. So that's how you show your qualities, different qualities you are showing. Okay. Now, additionally, extra precautionary measures. Again, this is something you will bring from your basic understanding of dealing with any of such issues like immediately disarmament, segregation, medical checkup, custody and verification, preventing any intelligence risk, coordination, strict documentation. These are very basic things. Any common sense person with common sense can write down. Okay, so that's how you show this balanced approach and end this particular case study. Getting the point? So that's how we have dealt with all the case studies for this year. I would say more or less all these case studies are on the same line like all the case studies which are already asked in the previous year questions. These are on the same lines. I don't find anything new as such. If you just prepare the basic structure of writing these case studies, practice few case studies, I don't think these are going to be that difficult for you. Okay, so prepare well. All the best for your next attempt. Thank you.